Welcome back to Rabbit Hole Adventures. As usual, my name's Joel. Back in the hangar once again, working on this Quicksilver. Last weekend, I ended up tearing apart the starter and getting it to where I could reinstall this nut that was kind of an issue. This week, we're back. We're gonna see if I can determine whether or not the battery was dead or the starter was still bad even after I attempted to repair it. I did notice one thing on my way home last week. I added a lot of red Loctite in hopes that the battery, or not the battery, but the starter nut would stay on. And on my drive home, like I said, I was pondering my life's decisions, and I realized I probably should have let that nut set on there without trying to set for 24 hours and let the red Loctite set before I tried it, because of how the starter pushes out and engages. It actually, from what I was pondering, it seems like the direction that it spins actually would loosen the nut, which by design you would think that it would be reverse thread, but it's not. So let's get to this battery real quick. Let's determine whether or not it's the battery or the starter that's bad. It's been on the tender for a week, like I said, and then I might pull that starter off and just double check, at least take a look at it and see that that nut didn't back off any. So let's get started. All right, here we are at the plane. As you can see there, sorry, I'm dodging and ducking cables. It says that it's charging. Oh, you know what? I actually came over and I disconnected it. So it did have a three green lights indicating that it was fully charged. And I'm gonna turn the main on real quick. I connected that battery cable. Let's see what we got. That sounds pretty promising. That's super strong. Let's try it again. Alrighty, cool. So seems like I had just left the battery off the tender for too long. It had been off for about a week. The battery is about 2 years old. It's more or less been on the tender the whole time. So I may end up having to buy another one, but it sounds like the starter is working out pretty well. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes and actually, let's pause this real quick, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. Okay, so this guy I forgot to put on before I put on the housing for the starter. So I'm actually going to pull these bolts off after I pull the starter off. Let me back up a little bit. I'm going to pull the starter off. I'm going to check that nut that's on the bottom to see if anything came loose. I'm not sure that I want to mess with it as far as trying to check the torque because of that red Loctite. Hopefully it's just cemented on there and isn't going to cause an issue. Worst case scenario, I have to do all of this crap again because that nut falls off, goes around here, broke the fan shroud like I've already mentioned, or fan case. Everything went through the propeller. Super bad day, super bad 2 years. But anyway, without the rambling, I'm going to pull this back off. I'm going to pull this whole mounting area off, which is going to suck because I'm going to have to prop up the wings again. I'm going to have to push the king post out of the way, and all that just so that I can get these tabs on the bottom there. Sorry, I don't have three hands, only two. So I can get those tabs locked in where they're supposed to go, which is right here and right here, and then reinstall this, then do all the things. But I'm actually pretty excited about all this. There's a few things that I want to do before I get super carried away. I brought my, I think I brought it, it should be somewhere, my bore scope. It's a digital camera deal. And I'm going to pull the spark plugs and I'm going to run that down in there just to check the cylinder walls, the tops of the pistons, things like that, check for scoring or anything unusual. It's been running really, really rich to the point where it's been dripping out of the exhaust. And I've got to double check my needle settings on my carburetors. I also, before I get too carried away, want to pull the bowls off and just make sure that the fuel that had dried up that was in there didn't leave any contaminants or any dust or whatever might be in the bottom of the bowls. I just want to pull them off just to get a warm and fuzzy about it. And then one more thing that's been kind of stressing me out is I read in the service manual or whatever it was that every so often, pretty often actually, you've got to retorque the cylinder head bolts to torque down the heads, the pistons, down to the engine itself. And right here, not sure if you can see it very well, but I've got some oil leaking out, and then I should have kind of documented a little bit better or mentioned it previously, but down where the cylinders, you can't see it, but down where the cylinders actually meet the engine, it looks like it's either too loose or the seals are bad, the gaskets are bad. So I'm going to try to torque those down, keep an eye on it, and see if it continues to leak. That sounds like a lot. Pretty tall order. And then, probably won't happen, but I would really like to try to install the propeller. That's probably a tomorrow thing. I brought fuel, I've got some mix oil, and all I need now is the time to do it. It's 2:30 and I'm just getting here, and it's going to be about the hottest day of the year so far, about 105 here in Utah. So looking forward to having some fun. Let's see what we can get done. Alrighty, for those concerned about safety, and sorry about the audio in the background with all the fans, but I did disconnect the battery before I pulled off all the cables and all that stuff, and I'm pulling the starter. Okay, moment of truth, the big reveal. Let's see if anything looks different. There we are. I can't tell. If you watched my video, I don't know if you could either. But now what? Do I check the tension on that thing? Do I leave it alone? Do I have to disassemble the whole thing to check the tension on the bolt to make sure that it's still properly torqued? Damn. I'm not sure if I ever mentioned it or not, but these videos are both for you and for me. So this here maintenance vlog, I can go back and look upon my previous videos to see what things look like. And not a very clear picture of that, but there it goes. I pulled up last week's video of me repairing this and looked at it, and it doesn't look like that thing's changed at all. It looks like it's in the same spot more or less. Scientifically can't prove anything, but I'm gonna trust the red Loctite. Hopefully it's cemented on there. I don't want to have to mess with it at all, so hopefully it stays on there for life. Alrighty, I went ahead and propped up the wings, both ends, and pulled the pin on the kingpin post and loosen those nuts up. So this guy can now come right off of there. I'm running out of space to set things down, so I'm going to hop down off the ladder, and then I'm going to try to fit this fan shroud on. Alrighty, so much easier with all that extra nonsense out of the way. There's 3 tabs. There, down here, and one on the other side. And if I can get it all lined up, should go right on. Very hard one-handed. There should be fully installed. Not the time to redo everything that I did last week, and then just undid, and now I get to do it again. So I'm gonna put the starter housing back on, and the starter, and I already went through and put some Loctite on these bolts and on those bolts. I'm going to reassemble it. Okay, front end of the engine is now reassembled. I torqued these down. My last video referenced once again. I estimated roughly 96 foot-pounds or inch-pounds with the blue Loctite on there. I hit it at 96, still felt a little bit loose, so I gave it a little bit more. And then these bolts here were 13 foot-pounds. So now I've kind of scooted all this stuff out of the way. I'm going to pull these bolts, see what I've got to do, if I've got to pull the whole muffler off, or if I can let it kind of support itself, and then pull the engine guard cover off of it, and see if I can check the torque on the head bolts. And after that, I'm going to try to scope the inside of the cylinders. Also, before I forget, I'm going to reinsert the pin in the king post and pull the supports out from underneath the wings. So here we are, just finished removing these guys, the hangers for the exhaust, and finished pulling these bolts out, pulling this guy off. Okay, and I'm going to get to pulling these Phillips screws off. Hopefully everything comes off smooth without too much issue. All the screws are out. Let's see what we got underneath here. Came off pretty easy. Alright. Other than some surface rust on the tin there, doesn't look bad. I'm going to reference the torque specs on these head bolts. See what we got to do. Looks like these little stubs probably need to come off. I'm going to get to it. Here's a little bit better look at the leak that I mentioned earlier. I've got oil coming out of there. Okay, time for a progress report. So these guys I thought were just kind of standoffs with nuts underneath. They're not, they're the actual nuts, all 4 of them. Found out that these bolts, or nuts I should say, without the standoff parts, were all at 210 inch-pounds. These guys were a good amount less than that. So I went through and re-torqued everything, made sure that everything's at 210 inch-pounds. I did do some research and it said that the recommended torque spec, because the manual that I'm working off, it's a repair manual from the mid to late 80s, I believe, somewhere there about in the 80s, and it said anywhere between 160 inch-pounds and 210 inch-pounds. So me and Grok did a little bit of research and come to find out that the new recommended standard, since it's no longer the 80s, is it's about 190 inch-pounds. So with these guys already being 210, I just went and torqued everything to 210. So it is fairly concerning that I've got some oil or fuel or whatever coming through. I would like to try to get some new head gaskets and cylinder gaskets so that I can swap them out. I'm going to do that down the road, not right now. So I'm going to put all this back, put the cover back on, and the exhaust hanger bolts. Here she is with the engine shroud, guard, cover reinstalled, the plate reinstalled. I torqued these back down to 210 inch-pounds, same as the standoff nut things that were underneath it, just so I didn't over torque anything, making sure it was the same spec. And then I snugged these down to where the washers are tight, and I standard with a lot of these builds, like all these little nuts and whatnot, wanted to make sure I had at least 3 threads on the lock nut sticking out from the lock nut. I was kind of impressed because at first I was wondering what was going on with the silicone, but then I realized it's kind of hard to fish everything in there, and somebody put a little squirt of silicone to hold the washer on to the rubber bushing so that it didn't fall off when you're blindly fingering it on there. But these bushings, they're past their prime a bit. I'm going to see if I can get some more ordered. It's not very hard to reinstall them, so those I will try to get new ones for. I also did mention earlier that I would like to inspect the cylinder walls and the tops of the pistons with my borescope. I searched high and low within the hangar and my vehicle and could not find it, so apparently I left it at home. Fortunately, it won't be too hard to do that tomorrow, and it wasn't a showstopper for today because I can just pull these spark plugs out just like you see it right here without a big deal and fish that in there and get an idea of what everything looks like on the inside. So for now, I'm gonna get this ladder out of the way. Well, maybe, I suppose I'm going to put all these spark plugs and everything back on, button all this up to where it's done and I don't need to climb up here anymore, and then maybe get the ladder out of the way and start working on the prop install, see how that goes, see how far I can get. This right here is a good feeling. I finally got the engine put back together after 2 years of it being broken. As you guys saw in my last videos, I did the fan housing down there. Sorry, the light's kind of bad. Did all the starter work, had to tear everything off again, as you saw. Finally got all the spark plugs back to where they're supposed to be, all torqued down to the proper spec, even though tomorrow I intend to pull 2 of them out so that I can inspect the cylinders. I wanted to make sure that I didn't walk away with anything left undone, especially since nobody's checking over this stuff when it's time to fly it other than me. And then if you guys are kind of concerned about or questioning what's going on with all this craziness, so this is a TAC / time on engine tracker that I've got mounted down to the frame down by the seat. And then these are some ferrite beads. One of my other hobbies is ham radio, and I've got a Sporty's PJ2 handheld radio that I've got mounted on this thing, and it was real hard for people to hear me, and I figured it was a lot of RFI, radio frequency interference. And so by putting those beads on there, ferrite beads, and I've got a couple more spaced out all over, it actually knocked down the static that was on my end when I was trying to transmit. So that's that. I'm gonna get this ladder out of the way and start on the prop. I'm gonna double check that the battery is disconnected and both mags are off, even though there's no fuel, since I'll be working on the propeller. And I suppose because OCD, while climbing down the ladder, was giving it a once over once again, and I realized I had pulled a lot of the friction tape off of all these wires, trying to figure out where the connectors were for the pickup that I replaced. So I'm actually going to hit that with some friction tape, button all this stuff up, and make sure everything's nice and secure before I walk away from it. Well, in my standard rabbit hole ADD adventures, I took something that could probably take, I don't know, 5-10 minutes and turned it into probably 45. But I went through and taped the hell out of everything, which I'm going to hate myself if I need to cut this open anytime soon. But that thing, to me, looks pretty good. To you, it probably looks like a big lump of tape. But all those wires are definitely secure and not going to rub on anything, not going to have any issues, unless I need to work on one of these or any of the other wiring. So that was a great side quest. My back is hurting from leaning all the way over to get there. My legs are hurting. Let's start the prop now. Alright, here's what we're working with. We got the 3-blade warp drive propellers that have been repaired since I had the issues with the stuff going through it, and they repaired the nicks and the edges. Used to have red tips. They don't have red tips now, just because I opted to be a little bit cheaper and not spend the $150 or whatever it was that they wanted just to paint the tips. We got the hub, and we got some new hardware, which I'm assuming is just the hardware for mounting the actual blades onto the hub. So let's get started. Here we go with another progress report. So I swapped out all these bolts and then laid it down, pulled the top off. I'm about to insert the blades into there and then put the caps back on them and then put that back down on it and then hopefully tip it up and not make too much of a mess of it because all the parts and pieces want to slide everywhere. And then walk it over to the plane and start getting installed. Just wanted to note that as I'm going through and putting these blades in their little housings, I'm making sure that there's no debris or anything in these and that they're nice and smooth. And then same with the actual part of the propeller that's going to mount inside of it, because if there's anything in there, I don't want it to get the propeller to be off center where it's supposed to be. And these are a pain in the butt because they keep tipping over. Alright, let's see if I can do this part one-handed. So I got all these where they're supposed to be, and then I've got all these bolts and all those little standoff parts. Doing this one-handed. Would you look at that? That's what I intended to do. So now I'm going to put all these nuts, washers and nuts on all the blades, get that secured, and then pick it up and walk it over to the plane. Would you look at that? That right there is a beautiful sight. Let's mount it. We'll follow. I'll zoom on that. Well, there it is with the prop hanging. Interesting thing about this hub mount is it bolts into this plate, but you also have to put nuts on the back side of it. All these guys, washers and nuts. So it's going to take me a minute, but she is getting so much closer. After I get it hung on there, I'm also going to have to adjust the pitch on all the blades. So that's quite the process. Hopefully I've got some good notes. I think I've got some pictures of the actual exact angle at which I had the blades. I've got the Rotax tool that you spin the blade down and you put the level on it and all that stuff so you can adjust the blade pitch. And I think I've got the pictures of exactly where I had it. So that'll be a good start, and then I can run it and see what RPMs I can get out of it. Alrighty, so there's definitely a lot going on here. I went through and used the socket wrench and just snugged up these hub bolts per the instructions from Warp Drive. They're just barely tight. They're bolting into this plate back here, and I was reading the instructions as I said. These lock nuts, they're not required. They're not shown in the diagram, but once everything's torqued down, once these hub bolts are torqued, I'm actually just going to snug these up with a wrench, and it's just some cheap insurance. So as it stands right now, like I said, these are just barely snug, and what it's doing is these aren't actually holding anything just yet, but it's providing enough clamping force onto the propeller blade that I can adjust the pitch of it, and it holds where I leave it. So I'm going to go over and get my Warp Drive level pitch thingy tool and put it on the outside, make sure that the blade is level. I'm going to be referring the rotacrepair.ca Canadian guy that I've mentioned before. He doesn't know it yet, but he's my mentor on all this Rotax repair stuff, because he's the only guy I can find that actually makes the videos and makes it clear enough to understand, because a lot of these instructions are so old that, like I mentioned earlier, I had a repair manual from the 80s, couldn't find anything other than that, and Brock told me that there was some reference from some more recent specifications as far as torque and whatnot. So wrapping up that rant, the rotacrepair.ca on YouTube, he's got some good stuff, and that's what I'm going to be referring to, as well as the Warp Drive stuff that I can find, and my previous notes from setting up the pitch on these propellers. Once I think I've got it, then I'm going to go run it and see what RPMs I can get out of it. I think that those specifications were in the Rotax 503 manual. Not exactly certain. I've got so many manuals. If anybody needs anything, and you're doing this and you're following me through it, don't take my word as gospel. Even that rotacrepair.ca guy, he's far better than me, but his warning at the beginning of his videos is it's not instruction. It's for entertainment purposes only. So do your own research. Reach out to me through the chat, not chat, but the comments on these videos. If you do need anything, I'll try to punch you in the right direction. So I'm going to go grab that tool and get started. Alright, so this is what I got going on here. Sorry, I've got one hand holding the prop and one hand holding the phone, but I've got the level on the top of the prop just to make sure that that's in the same position every time. And then I've got this here dial set up to where I believe, and don't quote me like I said, take this for what it's worth, but my notes say I had a 1 degree pitch. I do not recall what the RPMs were at that pitch, but that was the last time I said anything. So I'm going to run with that, and I'm going to see what I get out of it. The Rotax manual that I was just looking at, I don't recall the actual name of the manual or whichever, however to go about that, but the manual said 6,800 RPMs max at takeoff. So 6,500 at cruise, and so that's what I'm shooting for. So I'm going to run with what I've got on this dial, and then get all 3 propellers set up. I'm going to torque everything down. Not sure if I'm going to be able to run it tonight because it's getting a bit late, but I'm going to see what I can get out of it. Here we have it with the pitch set from the previous setting that I had, whatever it may have been in actuality as far as the actual pitch degree, but they're all set to the same, and so I'm going to go through and torque everything up and go from there. Alright, so I just finished referencing the torque specs on these. We got 120 inch-pounds on these bolts and 180 on these. You're supposed to do these first at 30 inch-pound increments. So I'm going to bounce around, hit them all the whole way through, and then do 30 more, 30 more, 30 more, or whatever, until I get to 120 pounds, and then more or less the same thing with these, and get them up to 180. Alrighty, well that took a while, but everything is torque to spec. That's pretty cool, pretty excited. I think I'm going to try to pop these bowls off. It is getting pretty late, it's going to start getting dark soon, but I'm going to pop these bowls off the carburetors and see what I can see. Well, I figured if you're interested I'll show you as well. Okay. Doesn't look too bad. I'll dump out the bottom and bring it up to the daylight and I'll show you. Honestly, it looks clean as a whistle, as they say, except for the dark spot in the bottom, but that's mixed fuel. Well, that was stupid. Alright, so it looks like there may be some gritty stuff down there in the bottom. So I'm going to flush it out. Maybe put some fuel in there, swish it around, and dump it out while holding the floats next time. Out there it's quite a bit better. Took a paper towel and a little dental pick and kind of swish it around down in the bottom. Clean it all out. And here's bowl number 2. Take it out of the light and see what it looks like. Yeah, definitely some gritty business down in there too. I'll see what I can do with the paper towel and then rinse some more fuel through it. And there's the second bowl rinsed out. And I'm going to install her. Mixing up some fuel, 2 gallons of 50-to-1. God, it is a beautiful evening. Look at that. Got the Quicksilver pulled out for the first time in a really long time. Just added some fuel to it. Gonna prime it, see if she'll fire up, and then if she does fire up, which, like I say, it's been a long time, I'm gonna see what kind of RPMs I can get out of that propeller pitch. Turning the fuel on. Let's see if this bulb's not rotted. Looks good. Got some fuel squirting back there. That's nice. So that's nice and firm. Never really used the primer, but she's pretty dry. Alright. Haven't even sat in the seat in so long. Turn the master on. Checking that my Brake is still set. Turn the EIS on. That in itself has been a really long time, just like everything. Turning on both mags. Yeah. Give her a couple pumps, not that it's necessary. Okay, I'm going to track the fuel just a tiny bit. Throttle just a tiny bit. And then, let's see what I can do here. Alright. That's not quite working. How about this? I have this fancy pants phone mount. Let's use that. That's been a while as well. Okay, so I'm going to hold the hell out of the brake just in case. Mags are on. EIS is on. Master's on. Alright, here we go. Clear prop. Give her a bit more fuel with the bulb. And a couple more of the primes. The battery's sounding a little bit weak. Okay, clear prop. That is disappointing. That hurts my feelings so bad. So bad. Just turned over good the first time. I didn't put my battery gauge thing on there. It basically just has a little coil which produces heat when you turn it on, clamps onto the battery and whatnot. That sucks so bad. I'm gonna have to test the battery. It said it was fully charged. It might be the starter, might be the battery. It's kind of 50-50 which one. Let's give it one more try. Brake is on, everything else is on. Clear prop. Ooh. Let's give it a little bit more throttle. A couple extra pumps just to flood her. Let's see if she starts. God. You know what though? Can't really see it in this frame, but if I go like that, you can see that four-wheeler. Guess what it's got in it? It's got a battery about the same size. I think I'm gonna put that in real quick, see what I can get. Well, I'm not sure if you can hear me very well or not, but I more or less swapped the battery. Had to use some Velcro and zip ties because it didn't fit inside the battery compartment, but it fired right up. I'm not sure because it's done that with the other battery, but it fired right up. Second try, I just had to prime it again. So I'm gonna hop in and see if I can run it up without the battery falling off. It's a little sketch. Let me show you that real quick if I can, pending the light. That battery compartment's over here. This is Velcro and a zip tie holding this thing up. And I lost the little nut that holds the thing on, so I actually zip tied the positive on there too. Letting it warm up. Well, just got done running it on the ground static. I got it about 6,200 RPM. I was actually kind of worried a little bit because the nose wheel is starting to flex. Probably not the best thing for this ultralight. I did a mag check on both at about 3,000 RPM. I've got to look that up now that I've been doing actual real flight training and whatnot, and really grasping things more than the original 15 hours that I had in an ultralight and an actual certified airplane. But I need to check to see what the RPM is for a mag check. I did it at 3,000 RPM and they dropped the same, which is awesome, because that kind of confirms that the new mag that I installed is working. It's fallen on its face about mid throttle forward, and so I already knew it was running pretty rich. I can work into it, as you guys probably saw if I spliced that clip in there properly, but it'll run full throttle, but it takes a little bit of working the throttle back and forth and then getting into it. It just kind of stumbles a bit before it ramps up, but it ran, and that's huge. I actually taxied around, as you'll see, or you already saw, I should say, but that's huge. That's really huge. I pulled it out and it drove around under its own power. So that's enough for today. It's pretty late. It's been a long day here. So if you like this stuff as much as I do, and you've hung out with me for this whole time, and you actually watch my whole videos, which is pretty rare because I can see the stats. But yeah, if you actually do watch the whole videos and you like it, drop me a comment. Let me know. If you don't and you're just skipping to the end, but you're one of my friends and you just want to see what the hell I'm doing when I'm out here by myself, that's cool too. Give it a like, subscribe, and all that stuff. So thanks, and we'll see you again tomorrow.